Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am reviewing 28 Years Later. I absolutely fucking love this movie. It made me cry in theaters, and even when I was kind of describing it to people, I described it to a few people and it would get me kind of like really in my feels. I don't want to go into the spoilers before giving you all a warning. So this is going to be a spoiler video. It's a full review. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you do. But turn this off and come back after you have seen it. Then we can talk about it down in the comments below. So this movie was directed by Danny Boyle, and Alex Garland was the writer, and these are the original writer and directors from the first movie. So the second one had a different writer and director, and it was okay. I wasn't in love with the second one. I almost got rid of it from my collection. I think I'm gonna keep it just because I think it is canon. They decided to make it canon, but they kind of reversed some of the information that was used in the second movie. For instance, at the end of the second movie, I think it hits France, and the virus hits France, and they kind of go back on that. On this movie, the virus is isolated to the UK, and it's kind of been quarantined from the rest of the world. So the UK mainland is pretty dangerous and kind of has been overrun by like the wild virus. So these people that the story follows, it follows a 12-year-old boy named Spike Lee, and he lives on like an island with these people who are survivors of this virus. They've kind of been left behind by the rest of the world, and they are secluded on this island, so they're kind of safe, but they have like a pathway that opens up for them, so they can go to mainland and like forage, scavenge for supplies and whatnot. And they have that area like very well guarded. Anyways, so back to 28 weeks later, they kind of disregarded all of that information because it's kind of just, you know, secluded to the UK. I don't know if they are going to use any of the information from the second movie. They were coming up with like a vaccine, because those kids' blood, the blood of the children, from that, you know, from the movie, had some kind of immunity to the virus, which is why the mom didn't turn, even though she was infected, and she passed the infection to the dad, and you see him turn and kill her, but then you know that the children actually carry that genetic material that is like immune to the virus. So I wonder if that's going to play a part in any of the future installments. Yes, there are future installments. It is supposed to be a trilogy, starting with 28 Years Later. They already have a sequel to 28 Years Later, and that is going to be called 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. And it's going to be so awesome, I'm sure. I'm so excited. It's coming out in January, and it's been filmed back to back with the one that just came out. And hopefully we're going to get a third one also. And what I've read somewhere is that, you know, we didn't really see Cillian Murphy this movie, and I thought he might be the zombie that got shot, that really like skinny one, but supposedly he's gonna be kind of make his appearance in the 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, and then the third one will be actually more following him, I think. That's what I read somewhere. So that is exciting. But the fact that they went back to the original writer and director, this movie has such, I wouldn't say it feels exactly like the original, because the original had such a moody atmosphere, and it was so good. This one is very much like it in the sense of it's like an odyssey, and it follows a character, and it's like a really strong story. It's beautifully told, where what I think the first movie was personally about, and I do kind of want to go back and do like a full review on 28 Days Later because it's one of my favorite movies. But what I thought that one was kind of, the message was about people. People, there's the quote that the guy says, and it's,
I've seen in the 4 weeks since infection. People killing people. Which is much what I saw in the 4 weeks before infection, and the 4 weeks before that, and before that, as far back as I care to remember. People killing people.
People killing people, and that's what we had before the virus, that's what we have now. He doesn't really see a difference of people killing people, and I think that really speaks true to, you know, world history, but even today's society, and, you know, how much better are we than the infected, really. And actually, in the new movie, the doctor kind of brings up that same point of like, we aren't any different from the infected. We're all kind of going to end up as these skeletons, and he kind of has this bone temple. He calls it his mémoire moi, I believe is what it's called, and that means to remember death. So he kind of has a tribute to the dead so that he can remember that we are all basically that. We are gonna all be that pretty soon. Some sooner than others. The first one is more about people, and people killing people, not really being a difference between us and the infected. And I think that 28 years later is about death, and we're not really any different from anyone else. You know, we all kind of become the same thing once we die. Whether you're rich or poor or sick or healthy, that's kind of the dessert at the end of the meal. You know, we all get that sweet death. So I'll talk about 28 years later now, finally. It follows a 12-year-old boy named Spike, and he lives on the island that I mentioned is quarantined from the rest of the world. It's an island off of the UK. It's, you know, not even far. It's like a walking distance once the tide is low. So he's in the UK in like a safe zone, and there's actually a lot of history behind that island too. I just found out watching someone else's video. Thomas Thorogood has a pretty good breakdown of this movie too. Anyway, so there's a 12-year-old boy. He lives on this island with his family. It's a mom and a dad and a grandpa, and I don't know whose side the grandpa is on, if it's on his mom or dad's side. Possibly the mom's. But his mom is kind of very ill, and she has like these throbbing headaches. She's kind of bedridden, and she's losing her kind of coherency, and she gets confused, and so you don't really know what's going on with her. But this boy is 12, and usually when the kids are a little bit older, they said around 14 is when they go out to the mainland for the first time to scavenge. But his dad thinks that he's ready at 12 years old. He's ready prematurely because of the way that this man has raised his kid. He thinks his kid is more advanced, and he is, and he's like a pretty serious 12-year-old. You kind of have to be in this world, I guess. This world of the infected. And that actually plays a huge theme too, and I don't know if these are kind of separate themes or they kind of fit together, but there's like this theme of fatherhood, and the mom, when she goes into these like spells, eventually she starts seeing her son as kind of like her father, because maybe of the way he's taking care of her. And she comes to a moment which I'll mention that later on, but she basically points out the differences of like the way her father raised her versus the way the boy's father is raising him, and it shows like, you know, some people have very loving, warm kind of fathers, and some people have very cold, maybe distant or not very open fathers, and that's something that I can kind of relate to. So this movie kind of hit a point there also. So, because this boy's father, even though they do have a relationship, the father is kind of harder, I guess, maybe on him. And there's a point where the mom asks the boy if his father is ever silly with him, like her father was silly with her. If in the moments when they're alone together, if they have those, you know, moments of softness and of silliness and playfulness. And the boy says no, and so I think that's really telling of his relationship with his father. So the boy goes out because he is ready at 12 years old to go to the mainland, and they, you know, encounter some trouble as expected. This is a horror movie, and they do make it back, and when they make it back, there's a big party that's thrown for the boy, which is really, you know, a celebration that he survived his first out. And during that night, he encounters his father, you know, having kind of an affair with someone, and that makes him very upset, obviously. And he also discovers from his grandfather that the fires that he saw while he was out in the mainland, he saw a fire with his dad, which his dad acted like he didn't know anything about. Well, the grandpa tells him that there's a doctor who kind of went insane, and he makes these fires out there. So after the boy catches his dad kind of having an affair with someone, he's really hurt. He basically threatens the dad to stay away from them, and he realizes his mom is dying, and it's only getting worse, her situation, and he thinks that this doctor can help them. And he does something really brave, really stupid, but really brave, and you see the love that this boy has for his mom, and it's really, really beautiful. And he starts a fire. God, I feel like I could cry just talking about it. I probably will when I get to the good stuff. So he starts the fire to distract the guards, and he escapes to the mainland with his mom, who's, you know, becoming less and less coherent, so it's not really like the wisest idea. But they get to the mainland, and they experience some hardships. Again, this is a horror movie, so there's some scary moments in there. But they are rescued at one point by a soldier. This soldier, he is someone who was stranded on the mainland. He was a soldier from another country, and he was in the waters. They became shipwrecked, and they ended up on the mainland. Once you reach mainland, you're quarantined, you're good as dead. Nobody from the outside world's coming to get you, which is kind of a similar situation to what was happening on that little village island that the boy lived on. They were basically told, you know, you go to the mainland, that's to your own peril. Nobody's coming for you. So you kind of have to sign your name that, you know, sign a waiver when you go to the mainland. So yeah, this soldier has some weapons, and he is able to help the boy and his mom. They encounter a baby along the way, which I won't really go into too much of that because I didn't really think about that one too much. I'm more focused on the boy story. It is interesting what will happen with this baby. Maybe the doctor mentioned that the placenta probably saved this baby from from becoming a zombie, because it was birthed by a zombie, but it was like not infected. So the mom and the boy have this baby, and the soldier like wants to kill the baby, but then the soldier is taken out by this like massive donged alpha zombie, and he is naked and has like a huge but he's like this alpha like zombie that apparently they have like certain zombies that reach this like next level of like evolvement, like they evolved from regular zombies to like super strong and huge. Oh, but I guess it's because it's like the doctor explains that the virus is like a steroid, so some of them like really get roided out. And this guy, he has something weird going on too, where he's almost like smarter than the rest of the zombies, and he has these crows that like follow him, and it's really cool. And I don't know if he's like connected with the crows or if the crows are kind of like pointing out the people to him, because when the crows are around, like you just don't feel safe. It is creepy. And you see at a certain point, like the crows are like surrounding this alpha zombie, so I wonder if he has like some kind of connection to them, or crows are just really smart. Maybe he's worked out a way to have them help him. Anyway, so the soldier is killed by this alpha zombie, and the boy and the mom are almost killed also, but the doctor shows up and he shoots a dart of heroin at that alpha, and he rescues the boy and the mom. He takes them back to his sanctuary, which you see is what I'm assuming is the Bone Temple, as titled in the second movie that's coming. But he has like this Bone Temple, and it reminded me of the Paris catacombs, which I feel really lucky to have seen in real life, and which I feel really lucky to have visited. And so he has like this shrine that's dedicated to the dead, and it's just like bones everywhere, and he has like this big like Christmas tree, but it's like made out of skulls, and he brings the decapitated soldier's head with him, and you don't really know why at first, but then you see him kind of boil it and peel it and make it like really clean, which I think to do that, I think that people usually use bugs. Like there's like certain types of beetles that will clean like a skull like that for you. I don't know how easy it would be to do that with like a knife. Anyway, he brings the cleaned skull of the soldier, and he tells the boy, to honor him by placing his skull here amongst the rest of the dead. And the boy places the skull down. And this is whenever the doctor and the mom and the boy and the baby are all kind of together and introduced, and they explain that they're there to check on the mom's health. And so he does an examination on the mom, and by the end of the night, or the end of that day, they have a campfire going. It's nighttime, and he like checks her breasts and everything, and he tells her, by the campfire, that she has cancer that's metastasized, and he could feel it like in her breasts and in her lymph nodes, and it's obviously in her brain, which is why she's having all these problems with the coherency and the headaches, and she gets nosebleeds. So yeah, he's telling her basically what's happened to her, and she's in a lot of pain, and she's causing a lot of like harm to the boy, in the sense of like he's put himself in a lot of danger for her, and her coherency has almost gotten him killed also. So the boy's kind of freaking out at this point, like he doesn't want to lose his mom. And the doctor gives him some medicine. He gives him a little bit of heroin also. and you see like him calm down finally because he's really, really upset, rightfully so. And then you see him kind of become a little numb because he's been drugged. And the doctor explains to him, and this is like, God, that was like the best part of the movie, when the doctor explains to him that there's many kinds of death, and there's the bad kind, but there's a good kind too, and the good kind is the kind where you can say goodbye to the people that you love, and it's peaceful. And so the doctor and so the doctor and the mom, they go off. And so then the mom kind of says her goodbyes to the boy, and she leaves the baby with him. And he kind of just sits there, and he's, numb. I think he knows what's going on, but he's just really numb to it. And the doctor and his mom go off into the woods, and the next morning when the boy is more coherent, the doctor comes back with a skull, and he gives it to the boy, and he tells him to place his mom, somewhere where she can be honored and among the dead. And he climbs that Christmas tree. There's like these spikes sticking out of it, and he climbs all the way to the top, and he puts her head up there, and he kisses it, and he says goodbye, and it's really, really beautiful. He's obviously still in a lot of pain, but he's kind of accepted the reality. It's really it was just kind of really sad to see. But it was also kind of beautiful the way the doctor explained peaceful death and getting to say goodbye, and it makes you really kind of grateful. I had a conversation with my mom about this actually, because it was so touching to me that I had to tell her about this movie. And she mentioned that, it really is a blessing when we get sick, because we get to see what's coming and we get to say goodbye. And that is, it's a little bit of mercy. Sometimes it's harder too, but I think getting to say goodbye is very beautiful. One thing that I also got out of the conversation with my mom was why did he kill her? But I think the answer to that is it was mercy, and the mom realized it was mercy because she was in pain, but also she was a threat to the boy. He was kind of putting himself at risk for her, and she probably realized how dangerous that was for him. So they had a reason for doing it. So that's kind of like the height of the movie, the point of the movie for me. The doctor eventually sends the boy back home to the village with the baby, and the boy decides he doesn't want to go back. He's not ready, and I think a lot of that kind of stems from the pain from his father and needing to kind of go about this on his own and grieve his mom and not be around his father, who he is smacked by his father when he confronts him. And I think that shows like a point of toxicity, because you don't necessarily think the dad's a bad guy, and I don't. He was lonely, and the mom is really like out of it. Like, I don't think that they had a sexual relationship at that point, but the fact that he slapped his son when he was being confronted, like, I thought that was wrong. And maybe he was a little too cold with him. Like, he never had those moments of silliness or of love or compassion that the mom kind of described her father to have with her. So I think that was a big factor in like why the boy decided to continue on his journey in the mainland. And he leaves the baby at the gates of the village, and he returns to the mainland, and he leaves a note for his dad saying like, I'm fine, and I'm just I need to explore some more. And his dad freaks out and he's trapped because the tide is high, so he can't go out after him. He realizes his son is like out there in the mainland alone. And then the ending, which is really weird. Basically, the boy at the beginning of the movie who escapes the hordes of zombies, his whole family is slaughtered. His dad is like this pastor in a church, and he runs into the church and he's trying to get his dad to like help him, but his dad is spouting this craziness about how this is basically the rapture is what he believes. So he's like welcoming his death, and he calls the zombies his children. But when I watched the preview, I was a little thrown off. I was like, what is this like satanic nonsense? But watching the movie, it makes sense, because it's like this pastor believes it's the rapture, and when he says my children, he just means like we're all God's children. So he's kind of just saying it in like a loving way and like a faithful way of like, this is the rapture, this is what is supposed to happen. And when I was watching it in the theaters, it wasn't as like as like twisted as I thought it would be in the trailer. Like, it was actually kind of beautiful, because he hands his son this like cross and he says like to remember to have faith. And I'm sure some people can take that and have it twisted in a way where it's like the hypocrisy of his dad, having this faith but like leaving his son to die, which is fucked up. But I think that faith is a beautiful thing. I don't think that boy Jimmy, though, became a very faithful person. He was still carrying around the cross, which at the end, the boy is rescued by this guy Jimmy and his crew of followers. They're almost like cult members, because they like go around and they write like Jimmy everywhere, and they're all dressed like Jimmy Savile, which I didn't know Jimmy Savile well enough to pick up on that, but I have heard of this character before, and I know of his like twisted I know of his like crimes and his convictions. He's a child predator. So he's a very disgusting person. He was like famous, and I think he had a TV show in the UK, and he, was doing like really weird stuff in front of the camera, but obviously he was a predator but off the scenes, and really disgusting. And I don't know why this gang of Jimmy's followers are all dressed like him, but they all have like this like blonde like mullet cut with tracksuits and a lot of fancy jewelry, and that's how Jimmy Savile dressed. So there's something to that also, which I'm sure will be explained more in the sequel. But at first I was kind of like, oh cool, like he's encountered a gang of misfits and they like fight they fight off these zombies in this like really intense like cartoonish way, and it's kind of like, oh cool, he's gonna join like this gang and he's gonna have like people who have his back. But then whenever I found out from Thomas Thorogood the connection with Jimmy Savile, like that can't be good, right? That's like someone who harmed children. So the fact that this child stumbled across this group is like really kind of disturbing. But I don't know what's gonna happen next. I just know that this movie was really good, really thoughtful. I loved it. I love this director and this writer so much. I didn't expect to like this sequel as much as I did. It's a different feel than the first one, but it's got a really great story, and it touched me and it made me think. That's my review on 28 Years Later. Thank you guys for watching. If you like my content, please remember to subscribe and like the video.